Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, addressing the UN Climate Summit in New York, President Park Geun-hye says the world should look past the burdens and see the economic opportunities of tackling climate change. South Korea's Foreign Minister Yun Byung-se proposes inter-Korean dialogue on North Korea's human rights. Plus, the United States commends the support of 5 Arab nations in airstrikes which reportedly killed scores of Islamic State and other al-Qaeda-linked militants in Syria. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, September 24th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. We start with President Park Geun-hye's first day at the United Nations, addressing leaders from more than 100 countries at the UN Climate Summit in New York. The president said the world should not see the response to climate change as a burden, but rather as an opportunity to create a new growth engine for the future. Now, Chae-yu-sun starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye has called on the international community to face up to one of the greatest challenges of our time, climate change. Addressing the UN Climate Summit, a high-level gathering to catalyze a global action plan on curbing carbon emissions by next year, the Korean president said the world should consider climate action as an opportunity, not a burden.
How we view the climate agenda as boon or bane will bring huge differences. Investing in the chance to unlock new energy industries and jobs can ignite fresh engines of future growth.
President Park said her government is seeking to nurture new energy industries in dealing with climate change, such as energy storage systems for non-stop supply, zero-energy buildings, and self-sufficient eco-friendly towns. To encourage the private sector to innovate in reducing emissions, the president said the market should reward them for their work. For everyone to participate in the global campaign, President Park said the developed world must assist their developing counterparts by sharing the required technology and know-how.
All countries need to do their share if we are to limit global warming to 2 degrees by this century's end. Korea will work to submit next year our plan to support the post-2020 climate regime.
Pledging to share Korea's own knowledge and experiences internationally, President Park announced her country will become the first in Asia to implement an emission trading scheme next year. Chae-yu-sun, Arirang News, New York.
And ahead of her address at the UN Climate Summit, President Park met with UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon and World Bank President Jim Kim. At a private banquet held in her honor, President Park discussed various global issues with Secretary-General Ban, including North Korea, assistance for world epidemics and underdeveloped nations, and also military action against Islamic State militants in Syria. She lauded the Secretary-General's efforts to reform the UN, while Ban thanked President Park for appearing before the UN Climate Summit. Also in New York, South Korea's Foreign Minister Yun Byung-se has proposed inter-Korean dialogue with the North on human rights issues after praising Pyongyang for its apparent eagerness to hold talks on the issue. The minister's comments came during a ministerial meeting on North Korean human rights on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The South Korean official urged the North to resolve human rights issues regarding the countless families still separated by the Korean War and also people abducted by the North. US Secretary of State John Kerry, who hosted this event, condemned North Korea's infamous political prison camps. He said they were an evil system and called for them to be closed down immediately. The United States has pledged to destroy all landmines outside of the Korean Peninsula. The US State Department said on Tuesday that the country will only use mines for the defense of South Korea, considering the unique circumstances here. The announcement comes in line with the department's statement in June that said it will no longer produce or acquire landmines, which are so devastating, of course. It also underscored its commitment to humanitarian aims of the Ottawa Convention back in 1999, and that prohibits the use and production of landmines. Now, for years now, the Japanese government has been taking various measures to purposely weaken the yen to give itself what many see as an unfair trade advantage. The weak yen is weighing especially hard on many Korean exporters, as the Korean won is currently trading near its strongest level in 6 years against the Japanese currency. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The weakening Japanese yen has emerged as a real threat to Korean automakers. Look at the second quarter performance of Korea's #1 auto group and compare it to that of their Japanese rivals. Experts agree that the country's auto industry remains vulnerable to exchange rate change.
I think the global consumer perception is that Japanese cars generally have a better quality. And the Hyundai has price competitiveness. So in this case, because Hyundai does not have the consumers' confidence, that they are going to be very much affected by changes in prices due to the exchange rates.
For the past 3 years, the Korean won strengthened by over 35% against the Japanese currency and is now trading near its strongest level in 6 years. This depreciation in the yen has been gaining traction on the back of the strong dollar trend, following forecasts of a potential rate hike by the Federal Reserve over the next few years. And when the pace of the yen weakening against the greenback has been faster than that of the Korean won, it's put an even stronger upward pressure on the local currency. Korean policymakers are also becoming increasingly concerned that the weak yen trend could hurt local exporters.
If Japanese companies start lowering costs based on the improved profitability they get from the weak yen trend, it will have a major negative impact on Korea's exports.
Now for investors, Korea's next rate-setting session set for mid-October is something to keep an eye on to see whether the weak yen trend will stick out as a major factor when policymakers consider lowering the key interest rate. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now to domestic politics, and despite the parliamentary standstill over the extremely contentious Seoul ferry bill, the ruling Saenuri party is determined to push through its plans to reform the public sector. Our Ji Myung-gil reports.
The Park Geun-hye administration and the ruling Saenuri party are on the same track, undertaking a full-fledged reform of the public sector. It calls for revising laws to make it possible to liquidate public companies with chronic deficits and preventing the practice of filling top public firm posts with political appointees. Korea's public enterprises were saddled with a combined debt of some $500 billion as of the end of last year, with their average debt-to-equity ratio nearly doubling over the past 4 years to 216%. The measure also includes abolishing or merging underperforming subsidiaries, especially state-owned energy companies which have made unprofitable investments abroad. Over the past 3 years, more than 60% of over 400 affiliates set up by public enterprises have yielded zero profits. The ruling party may be determined in proceeding with its reform drives, but is also facing fierce labor resistance. On Monday, unionized public servants disrupted a session between the ruling party and Pension Association as they were discussing how to reform the civil service pension program. Given the prolonged political standoff, ruling party lawmakers should take the time to secure cooperation from opposition lawmakers in order to enact reform-related bills. With no major elections scheduled until 2016, the time provides favorable conditions for pushing through legislation with help from the opposition party. 김영길, Arirang News.
Well, now it's time for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Wednesday morning right here in Seoul. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark. We are learning more details about the first round of intense U.S.-led airstrikes launched against Islamic State targets yesterday in Syria. More than 200 airstrikes were launched against about a dozen logistical targets in the surprise offensive, much of it in or around the Islamic State group's self-declared capital of Raqqa. Activists on the ground said some 70 IS militants were killed in the early morning assault. Washington was joined by 5 Arab states, a rare alliance and a first in 23 years that underscores the threat they saw in the extremist Sunni group. Jordan, the UAE, and Bahrain all confirmed they had flown sorties. Saudi Arabia only said it had participated in military operations, while Qatar is believed to have given logistical or political support. Separately, U.S. forces also struck a group of senior al-Qaeda officials, also known as the Khorasan Group. American officials said they had been plotting imminent attacks against the West and had established a safe haven in a region west of Aleppo. Following the mission, U.S. President Barack Obama said the partnership showed that this was not America's fight alone and that the U.S. was proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with these nations. And just hours following the launch of that aerial assault, the Islamic State released a second video featuring a British photojournalist held captive believed to be John Cantley. In it, he warns those participating countries battling IS that the conflict will become a quagmire just like Vietnam. He appeared to read from a prepared script, looking directly into the camera in his criticism of the U.S. and several European nations. And a grim warning on the Ebola outbreak. A new report by a U.S. health agency says the number of Ebola cases could dramatically soar to up to 1.4 million by January in Liberia and Sierra Leone alone. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said the toll is partly based on the premise that Ebola cases are vastly underreported. It believes there could be up to 21,000 reported and unreported cases in Liberia and Sierra Leone by the end of this month. The World Health Organization has said there are an estimated 5,800 infections and over 2,800 deaths in West Africa, while conceding that they are likely to be gross underestimates. Now, some 16,000 protesters crowded a park in Tokyo on Tuesday, protesting the Japanese government's push to restart nuclear reactors as early as this winter, amid strong anti-nuclear sentiment. According to Kyodo News Agency, among those in the crowd was Nobel laureate Oe Kenzaburo, who accused Tokyo of planning to restart the reactors without ample testing, thus showing a lack of contrition since the disaster 3.5 years ago. Earlier this month, Japan's nuclear watchdog had cleared 2 reactors in the Sendai plant for restarting among the country's 48 idling reactors.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we continue on with our 2014 Incheon Asian Games coverage. And we begin with the big event which took place last night as Park Tae-hwan won after his first gold medal during the men's 400-meter freestyle event. Now, despite China's Sun Yang not being 100% in this event, he still dominates the event, finishing first with a final time of 3 minutes 43.23 seconds for his first gold medal in Incheon. Meanwhile, Japan's Kosuke Hagino would finish second, followed by Park Tae-hwan, who wins yet another bronze medal in the Asian Games. And now moving over to badminton, where the South Korean men's badminton team went after their first gold medal in Incheon as they faced off against China in the final. With Son Wan-ho winning the first game in the singles event 2-1, the duo of Lee Young-dae and Yu Yeon-sung dominate the second game 23-21, 21-13 for a 2-0 win. Korea needing one more win for the gold medal, but China comes storming back to take the next two matches. But it's Lee Hyun-il who comes to the rescue, winning the final match 21-18 as Korea wins their first team gold in 12 years. And now shifting over to weightlifting, where Chinese Taipei's Lin Zu-chi broke the world record in the women's 64-kilogram event when she lifted 145 kilograms for the clean and jerk, and the combined weight of 261 kilograms as well. But it seems like we've been seeing a lot of world records being broken in weightlifting during the Incheon Asian Games. Now, so far in the 5 days of the Incheon Asian Games, 6 different weightlifters in both the men's and women's competition have broken 11 different world records. This includes the two North Koreans, Yun-chul and Kimoon, who broke a combined 4 different world records. Meanwhile, the only other world record that was broken was in the women's 10-meter air rifle event when China scored a combined 1,253.8 points. And now over to baseball, where baseball fans will be treated to a big matchup later tonight when Korea faces off against the Chinese Taipei. Well, it's because there's a good chance the two teams will meet again in the championship game. Despite rain in the forecast, Kia Tigers ace Yang Hyun-jong is expected to take the mound for the South Korean national team. And while the Chinese Taipei has yet to reveal their starting pitcher, they boast talented pitchers who currently play in the U.S. with minor league teams and batters who have great speed. Meanwhile, the Chinese Taipei beat Thailand 13-1 for their second win on Tuesday. Now, South Korea added a few more gold medals on Tuesday, including the women's saber team, which consists of Kim Ji-yeon, Lee Da-jin, Hwang Sun-ah, and Yoon Ji-soo, who defeated China 45-41 for Korea's first gold medal in the event. So let's now take a look at how the medal count looks so far after 5 days of the Asian Games. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, Korea has been spending an increasing amount of time and money helping the nation's tourism, arts, sports and culture sectors. The current administration has made cultural enrichment one of its key priorities, and part of that goal is infusing the nation's identity with its culture. Park Geun-hye has the details.
The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism unveiled its budget plans for 2015 Tuesday. The final number will come in at more than $4.5 billion. And while that's just 1.3% of the government's overall spending of $360 billion next year, it represents a more than a 10% increase from this year and the biggest boost among all ministries. The tourism, sports and arts and culture sectors will make up slightly more than a quarter of the total culture budget each, followed by the contents industry at around 12%. By subsector, the sports and contents industry will see the largest rate of growth. That's partly due to preparations for the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018. The contents industry, which includes film, music, games, and animations, will see more than 18% increase to nearly $590 million next year, as the incumbent administration sees it as a growth engine for the creative economy. The Park administration has vowed to increase the annual cultural budget to an OECD average level of about 2% of total government spending by 2017. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Right, well, it's the end of September and we're right in the middle of autumn here in Korea, and it really is a wonderful time of the year when many Koreans tend to travel within the country to encourage more people to get out and about and enjoy some of the many things Korea has to offer. The government and the Korea Tourism Organization have teamed up and they're going to provide us all with some fantastic tourism and travel-related discounts. Kwon-soo reports.
Most Koreans go on vacation during the summer. But the beautiful colors of autumn and perfect weather these days call for taking some days off and traveling around the country. And now may be the best time to plan a trip as the so-called 2014 Autumn Tourism Week kicks off at the end of this week. The campaign, introduced by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism and the Korea Tourism Organization, runs from September 25th to October 5th. More than 3,700 tourism-related businesses are participating, offering lots of events and discounts that should lessen the financial burden on domestic travelers. They range from cheaper transportation and accommodation fees to food and event price cuts. Korea's state-run railway operator Korail and the nation's biggest express bus operator Kimoon bus lines are offering discounts of up to 30% on tickets. Price reductions on gasoline at major tourist locations, for rental cars, and room rates at 180 hotels will be slashed too. Not only that, Korea's ancient palaces and amusement parks can be enjoyed at discount prices.
We want to promote discounts at main tourism businesses to encourage people to take trips. We are taking into consideration people's time and financial restrictions, and we hope to boost the economy.
The 2014 Spring Tourism Week was launched earlier this year, but the project fell flat largely due to April's ferry disaster that made people feel less inclined to travel. Kwon-soo, Arirang News.
Now, the Korean film industry is more diverse than ever before. Nestled between the multi-million-dollar blockbusters are a growing number of independent movies that are grabbing the attention of audiences. Our Shin Se-min reports on one low-budget indie film that has been making waves at film festivals around the world.
The ordinary life of a 70-year-old woman who's traveled a rough road growing up in the tranquil city of Suncheon in the South Jeollanam-do province, the documentary Splendid But Sad Days invites audiences to her story as a wife, a mother, and a fisherwoman who's devoted her whole life to support her family members. This independent film made its first showing on the silver screen on Tuesday for general audiences who's been waiting for their chance to view the film. The documentary has been highly praised by international audiences throughout the film festival circuit, including the Busan International Film Festival, Focus Korea of France, and the Montreal World Film Festival, and has so far earned positive reviews.
International audiences commented on the film's ability to capture the unfiltered life of a woman who willingly gave up everything for her family, along with aspects of Korea's traditional culture, and I'm glad I was able to present such a side of Korea.
And more moviegoers are saying that independent movies like this are more influential when compared to commercial hits, which can sometimes overwhelm audiences.
I think the movie will linger in my mind days after, and watching it made me want to search for more independent movies that can touch my emotions.
While attention for local documentaries is small, the genre is growing, like the independent film Old Partner released in 2008, which reached over 2.9 million in box office sales. The movie Splendid But Sad Days will begin showing in theaters starting in Suncheon on the 25th. 신세민, Arirang News.
It's just sprinkling here in the capital, but other regions are receiving heavy showers at this moment. But soon, these thick rain clouds will move up to north and dropping heavy downpours to here in Seoul and its surrounding areas. So morning riders need to drive with extra caution out on the roads this morning. So the central parts of the nation will see up to 100 millimeters of shower, while the rest could see up to 150 millimeters of rainfall. And it seems like rain and clouds will drag down the temperatures quite a bit today, so let's take a closer look. Now, the high in the capital will only make it to 21, while Busan will top out at 26 later in the afternoon. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will see highs of 27 and 23, and Dokdo peaks at 21. Now, it's going to be a rainy day for Incheon as well, while the Asian Games are in full swing, and it's forecast to rain till about 3ish this afternoon. So we'll have to see if some of the games that are taking a place outdoor might be postponed. Well, that's all for me at this hour, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Jion, for the weather update there. Those are the stories we have for this hour. I'll be back again at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.